Welcome back to the Blue Collar Boxing Podcast. I am Luke from Biloxi. I watched the premiere of Zuffa Boxing on Paramount Plus last night, and here are 5 things I thought went wrong with the entire show and promotion. Now, before I get into that, I want to be clear. I do not root for or against promotional entities or broadcast networks, and oftentimes I don't even root for or against fighters. What I want is good, solid, sustainable product so that boxing thrives for the next 1,000 years. That's what I want. So my criticisms of Zuffa Boxing that will be coming up here are not me not liking Zuffa or me not liking Dana White or me liking other promotional entities. That is not the case here. So let's get into it. Number one, the opening show. I started at 5:30 Eastern Time for the beginning of the undercards. The ring walks for the first fight in Zuffa Boxing history, ostensibly, did not occur until almost 6:15. 45 minutes. So why does that matter? Look, people have choices now. People have unlimited free content on YouTube. They have Netflix. They have all kinds of manner of streaming services. Some are even still watching cable. You've got to hook people on your first broadcast right away. Now, I get it. A lot of all sports have pregame shows, and that's fine. But what they do, for instance, in the NFL, right? CBS Sports on Sunday has, NFL Sunday, Fox NFL Sunday. They start an hour or 2 hours before the game, but at 1 o'clock, if you're on the East Coast, at 1 o'clock, you're going to turn on that TV and someone is kicking off. That's what these boxing guys need to do, Zuffa included, and DAZN and everyone else. Listen, tell me ring walks for the first fight are at a prescribed time. If I want to watch the pregame show, I will. If I don't, I won't. Maybe I've got other things to do. But don't tell me fights start at 5:30 and I got to sit around and watch a podcast for 45 minutes. That's not what I want to do. Start the show at a definite time. 5:30, 2-minute vignette on both fighters. Cue ring walks at 5:35. Let's go. All right, so that's my number one issue. Number two, the Zuffa name. Look. My UFC friends and some of the other people out there have educated me on the history of Zuffa. The brothers who started UFC, that's what they called their company. They were Italian. Zuffa in Italian sort of means to scrap or a scrap, brawl. An Italian buddy of mine, an actual guy that was raised in Italy, told me that. I get it. That's fine. Nobody knows what Zuffa is, right? Is it a truffle? Is it a loofah? It's ridiculous. It's a poor name, especially from a company run by the UFC that is outstanding in marketing. Why did you call this Zuffa? It sounds ridiculous. Perhaps it'll take off. Maybe with the marketing and the outreach that you have from Paramount Plus, it will. I just don't like it. People are going to go, what is a Zuffa? What is this? More influencer fights, things like that. Zuffa? What is that? I don't get it. You could have called it UFC Boxing. You could have called it Ultimate Boxing Champions. I know that's too much like PBC, but I'm just saying in the 10 seconds that I've thought about it, there's like 2 other names that are better than Zuffa, even if those names aren't very good. Don't understand why you called it Zuffa. Call it something else. Top Rank, Main Events, Matchroom, Queensberry, Golden Boy Promotions. These things are innate. You look at Top Rank and you know what that means. You don't know what a Zuffa is, especially in the United States, right? I could see maybe if you were trying to market to Latin Americans in the United States and in Mexico and beyond and calling it, Pelea Boxing. I would get that. Don't get the Zuffa. And that brings me to my third point, the Zuffa gear and the trunks. Look, boxing is one of the last sports, if not the last sport, that allows for sort of individual types of expression. Superstars do this. Imagine Hector Macho Camacho having to come into a ring wearing Zuffa trunks, where everything on those trunks was predetermined. Imagine Floyd Mayweather. Imagine Adrian Broner. Imagine Manny Pacquiao having to wear Zuffa trunks. Surely if you paid them enough, they would. But what I'm saying is Zuffa is going to need stars to maintain itself. They cannot just sell it as a boxing product. There has to be stars attached. And you cannot make these guys wear this generic, basically like high school gym class clothing. And that's what they were wearing. They had to wear it at the weigh-ins. They had to wear it in the fights. It looked like I was watching almost like a prison fight or something, or like, gym class wrestling or something. Like, what the hell, man? Let these guys wear what they want. I understand if you want to put some rules on it, or some, guardrails, that's fine. But these bland colors, it looked like crap in my opinion, and I didn't like it at all. Next point, probably my biggest sort of failure of the evening was Max Kellerman. I like Max. I respect him a lot. I met him once as a fan. He was incredibly generous. But my God, was Max getting paid per the word last night? I mean, my goodness, he would not shut up. I was screaming, shut up, in the main event. My wife, who's half asleep, is going, what am I, snoring? No, honey, it was Max. He just wouldn't stop talking. And I think I'm going to give him the benefit of a doubt just a little bit. Zuffa and Paramount Plus, they don't have any IP, right? They can't go back to top rank film without paying a boatload for it. They can't go back to Golden Boy. They can't pull stuff from HBO, things like that. So I almost think that, a lot of their promotional materials, you had, Rocky Marciano and Ezra Charles clips. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but you could tell they were really trying to find the public domain stuff to promote this. It's almost as if Max at times was trying to say these like amazing things from a commentator perspective that they could clip and use for later promotional stuff. And to me, it came across as disingenuous at times. He was also laughing way too much. Every time there was a combination, he'd be like, oh my God, did you see that? I mean, you could have played a drinking game to it. And then at the end, my goodness, Callum Walsh fought a near perfect fight, and you come up with a Roy Jones comparison? Max, come on, man. Even Andre Ward wouldn't say anything when you said that. And kind of looping into the Kellerman problem, clearly Tessitore and Kellerman and Andre Ward were there to promote Zuffa Boxing. They were not there to sort of be journalists and call and analyze fights. And I get that to an extent, right? You got to promote the platform. But nevertheless, man, you guys took it a little far. And Kellerman especially. Comparing Callum Walsh to Roy Jones is ridiculous. And I think Max benefited a lot of years calling fights at ringside with Jim Lampley, because Lampley had so much gravitas and he was able to rein things like that in. Every time a punch exchange happens, you don't have to make some analogy to past historic fights. It was just labored, and it was just oftentimes came off as phony. And then finally, my fifth point is Dana White. Dana White was sitting there ringside, and he just didn't seem to want to be there. He just didn't seem to want to be there. He had a monitor in front of him that he wasn't using. I understand, in his case, and even the commentators will often, they don't actually kind of watch the fight in front of them. They look at the monitor because they want to see what we see and call the fight that way. It also kind of allows them a little bit of a delay, even if it's just half a second to talk. He wasn't even doing that. He was on his phone. He was shooting the shit, even during the main event. I'm like, dude, this is your platform. You came up with this. You put money on the table. You've promised all these shows, and you're not even interested. And if you're trying to promote this into something that your UFC fan base that you've spent nearly 3 decades developing, you want them to cross over and come back to boxing, or just come to boxing for the first time, you looking disinterested at ringside is not going to do that. I'm not sure if Dana even wants to be here anymore, to be honest. I don't know if he's. I don't know. I don't know the guy. I've never met him. I don't know his psyche. It just did. When the promoter is disinterested, it's not good as far as the fans at home being interested. At least Turkey's down there shadow boxing and watching, and Eddie Hearn's always there. Bob Arum was ringside for the undercards watching. You're just kind of disinterested. So let's get into some things that were good. Those are my 5 points of things that were bad. Some of the things that were good. Look, the fights were good. It was a good card. Wasn't great. Wasn't all time. It doesn't have to be. The fights were solid. The matchmaking was good. Was done well. The main event was just a tad boring, but it was still good matchmaking. Still had its moments. Guys were landing shots. I like how they have a boom in the ring. I don't know if y'all noticed that. You probably could hear punches landed a little bit better than you've heard in different broadcasts, whether it's DAZN or others, Amazon, etc. I like that. I like to hear the shots. That was kind of cool. I haven't really heard it that way in quite a while. Other than the pregame show, to get to my second good point, the pacing was very good. You know, a fight would end within 5 to 7 minutes. We had ring walks for the next fight. Love it. That's the way HBO used to be, right? That's the way Showtime at its peak used to be. Even in fights where there were very early knockouts that weren't necessarily foreseen, they would have another fight ready to go. You know, that was probably scheduled to be the walkout fight. They'd throw in another fight, or they would show you non-televised action from the night. So the pacing was excellent. Other than that, what I said about the pregame show, once the fight started, the fights didn't stop, and that I really appreciated that. We've been through some long shows with the DAZN broadcast. Zuffa did a good job here. The production value was very good. This is pivoting off the last point. I was really impressed. They did a nice job. There were some in the preliminaries. They were kind of cutting rounds off, coming back to rounds a little late. Some guys had some live mics. They didn't realize they were on. Look, that's going to happen. But they cleaned it up as the broadcast progressed, and I was very impressed. Look, ultimately, I'll leave you with this point. Ultimately, American boxing needs avenues like ShowBox provided, USA Tuesday Night Fights, Boxing After Dark, KO Nation, ESPN's Friday Night Fights. I used to love getting off of work at Friday night, taking a nap, and just chilling out and watching Friday Night Fights when it came on. We need these types of things. ProBox has been trying to do that. They don't have near the reach that Paramount Plus under CBS is going to have. Not everything has to be a major event extravaganza, and I like that. So hopefully Paramount Plus, in addition to creating these massive events, can do fights like this. I'm all for it. All in all, I give it a C+ with a lot of potential. That's how I feel. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. I'm going to do a video on Jim Lampley, his strange absence, as I've talked about him reining in Max Kellerman and some other things. So go ahead and check that out. Give me a follow on @BlueCollarBoxing on X. I'll see you on the next one.